Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, so this is a session, our research webinar session organized by Business School. Okay, for today is series 3, and the speaker that we have here today is Dr. Zafir Salleh. Okay, let me introduce a bit about her. She has been with UTM for almost 20 years already. Okay. And she's prominent in the area of marketing. Okay. And her research mainly on tourism marketing. Okay. She has various publications. Okay, you can always check on the net what are her publications. And her focus on research method, I mean, she is in the she has a good grasp of qualitative research. So she's the one who can share a lot on how to do thematic analysis today, especially for those who have interviews, who have qualitative data, okay, in your research study. Right. So thank you everyone for coming, okay, for attending here. I know some of you are working probably, but yes, the webinar that we have here today is more on sharing session and to give you a platform to get clarifications from our AHIPS expert on this. All right. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Zafir, and I pass over the session to her to start. All right. Thank you. So Dr. Zafir, I pass this over to you.
Okay, hi, Assalamualaikum, good afternoon. I am Dr. Zafir from AHIPS, and thank you for joining me for this humble expression of PhD journey of mine, doing thematic analysis. Actually, it is partially grounded theory. I did not do fully thematic analysis, but I will show you how thematic analysis can be carried out as a research method, especially when you do mixed method, because it is quite flexible and it's quite easy compared to a fully grounded theory. Okay. I see so many of my colleagues here. I can see Dr. Rosita, maybe Dr. Many more. Dr. Farzana, wow, you are here too. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I always
Thank you for joining. I'm just sharing my PhD journey actually. So Dr. Halina, oh my God. And my other class office mate, if you have anything that you want to add on, you can add on together together in this session. We can share our the knowledge that we have. Okay, I'm just sharing you what did I do in my presentation, in my thesis, in my PhD. Okay. All right, so I will show you my screen now. Okay, this is qualitative analysis, a type of qualitative analysis. It is called thematic analysis. Normally, when we say thematic analysis, the main reference will be Brown and Clark, 2016, 2009, and 2013. Okay. So the plan of this presentation includes what is thematic analysis, the steps in it, and what is coding. Coding is so related with qualitative. We don't have questionnaires. We don't have SPSS or probably the higher level statistical method, but we use coding. Well, it is quite interesting for a first timer like me to do coding, because I get to know the respondents very well and what they are talking about things that I research. Okay, and then we have to select the main theme that we want to present in our thesis. Also, how to report thematic analysis using the table. Okay, it's going to make it easy for you to report the thematic analysis if we refer to the table that I suggest you to have. Okay. Okay, this can be a little bit dry. What is thematic analysis? It is a qualitative research method widely used by many research objectives, and the steps are.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Please, we are not seeing your slides here.
You cannot see our slides. You cannot see
Yes.
my slide. Okay, I'm so sorry. Hold on, yeah. All right, can you see now?
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So this is the plan, yeah, for this presentation. And as you can see here, I put Brown and Clark 2006. Boyadziz, a prominent researcher that we have to, I think, quote if we are doing qualitative. He said that it is a translator for those speaking the language of qualitative and quantitative analysis. It means that this thematic analysis is in the middle, not too qualitative, and can be understood by the quantitative researcher. Okay, so quantitative researcher might want to welcome or use thematic analysis. The qualitative analysis is the most complex phase, yeah. It is the most complex phase of qualitative research, because normally when students have carried out their interviews, they are going to sit back and relax. Okay, I've done my PhD. No, you're going to transcribe your data, and you got to get the data first before you need to analyze it. For quantitative, it might be half complete, I think, if they have already completed the data collection. But for qualitative, it is a bit adventure, because you need to transcribe the data. Okay, when you need to transcribe the data, but you don't know how to do it after transcribing the data, you don't know what to do next. And that's what is qualitative analysis all about. There are some steps that you need to follow, and in this time I'm going to share the thematic analysis steps. Okay, but sadly it is least thoughtful discussion in the literature. Some people says that it is because of the lengthy explanation on how to do qualitative analysis. And another reason is because probably the researcher did not do a systematic approach of doing the qualitative data analysis. So they just briefly explain what they do without going into detail in the paper. Okay, I'm saying that in many research papers, you're having hard time to understand how they do their analysis. If you agree with that, you can put at the chat, okay, how many papers that you found have very little information on qualitative analysis. They just mentioned that we use thematic analysis, and that's it. Yeah. Okay. And a thematic analysis or qualitative analysis is a systematic approach of qualitative data analysis. And again, qualitative researchers often omit a detailed description, as I told you, in a published research report. Normally, the reason they give is that they don't have enough space. Okay, so the advantages and disadvantages of thematic analysis include: it is a highly flexible approach, means that it doesn't really rely on a theory, and it doesn't really involve technical terms used in qualitative research, yeah? And then it doesn't require a detailed theoretical and technological knowledge, as I mentioned. It is it's summarizing the key features of a large data set. If you have like 20, maybe 100 of respondents, so you want to get an idea on what are they talking about, one research objective or one question, for example. You can use thematic analysis, okay, to get the idea. Examining the perspective of different research participants, highlighting similarities and differences, and generating unanticipated insights for advantage of thematic analysis. Disadvantage of thematic analysis includes there are limited numbers of literature talking about thematic analysis compared to the grounded theory, ethnography, and phenomenology, because maybe a thematic analysis, a detailed steps on thematic analysis was introduced by Brown and Clark in 2006. So it is still new, I presume. Okay, and the flexibility of this thematic analysis lead to inconsistency. Because of limited steps, yeah, they took in doing thematic analysis, and lack of coherence when developing terms derived from the research data. So you have to be very extra cautious if you want to implement, or if you want to adopt thematic analysis as one of your research method. I will suggest you combine maybe thematic analysis and grounded theory, partially grounded probably, to make your research more acceptable as PhD research. But if you want to do a mixed method, I think this could be accepted. And it is it is important for you to follow or cite certain references, yeah, in doing your qualitative research. You know why? Because these authors, they have suggested some methods and steps that you have to follow. If in quantitative you have statistical methods, in this qualitative, you might not have statistical steps, but you need to follow the researcher's steps to justify your research, okay, to justify that you are doing a qualitative analysis already, to ensure the credibility, the trustworthiness, yeah, of your research. And who are they? The prominent one, I just pick up some here. There are many, but I just pick up some. Glacier and Strauss, Strauss and Corbin, Miles and Huberman, Rubin and Rubin, Creswell and Brown and Clark for thematic analysis. Okay, Creswell will guide you through how to report a qualitative research. Okay, the rest are very much on technical. They actually propose technical steps, yeah, in technical qualitative kind of qualitative analysis. It's very much technical, I would say. And another thing is, okay, the data. Where can you get the data? You can get the data from the notes that you jot down, and we call that as personal journal as well. During the observation, Before you go for an interview, you might observe the company, for example, whether the company is big or small, how many employees do you meet in front, or maybe is it the company busy or not? Okay, interview tapes and transcript, newspaper clippings, personal journal, survey or questionnaires, if it is open-ended questions. Okay, so to ensure credibility, we encourage or we propose, many of the researchers propose triangulation of the data. So you must have several sources of data to make sure that your research is credible, trustworthy. Okay. All right, so this is the one that I use in my thesis. This is the phase recommended by Brown and Clark. This is the one that I do. Yeah, in my thesis. So I do when I want to getting familiar with the data, I transcribe the data. I read the data and identify the initial ideas of the data. Okay, and then we do open coding. When we do open coding, we identify the properties and the dimension. Okay, if you don't know that, I will explain that in a while. And from there, you can produce the themes in Axial coding. I check the themes in the entire data set and produce the thematic map of the analysis. When you have this map, it shows that it helps you to identify and to explain in your discussion. Okay, this thematic map is useful, and it can be an outcome of your research as well. Rename themes based on Axial coding. You need to reorganize your themes, okay, and relate the analysis to research question to produce the report to the analysis. This is on reporting of the result, okay. Okay, what is coding? Yeah, the first coding, second coding. Do you need third coding, or we just go to selective coding? Okay, so coding is actually to identify the concept of or ideas of the data that you have. What kind of data? The transcription, the data that you transcribe. Okay, so you identify what are the ideas, the concept, the keywords that your respondents trying to tell you. Okay, that is the first coding. And then the second coding, you try to go through all the codes and make sure on the redundancy of your codes and select the best that could represent what your respondents saying. Okay, and if you have too many data, you might need to do coding up to third coding to get the clean codes, the codes that is reliable for you to represent your respondent. Yeah. As according to Philip Adu, an author to a step-by-step guide of qualitative data coding, you can adopt a strategy, but I don't do this. I did not adopt this in my thesis because back then there are lack of coding book available. So there are 3 types of coding strategy as according to this coding method decision tree that you could adopt in your study. If you have this, it might strengthen your justification in terms of doing your coding. Yeah. So mine could be interpretation focused coding strategy, because is describing the data or a phenomenon your intent? Yes, for my research. Is relevant information generally hidden in the data? Yes, in my research. So mine could be interpretation focused coding strategy. Yours may be presumption focused coding strategy, where you might refer to a theory and you have already pre-coded before you go to the interview. Yeah, yours might be this one. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. So this is an example of coding. Probably I have to stop sharing this. And I can share you my, how do I do my coding? Yeah. This is the significant statement that the respondent told me about. Okay, they say okay, this is what they say. Okay, and my open coding is the managing director 1, initiate religious activities 1, and Islamic hotel award 1. I'm doing Islamic hotel implementation. Yeah, how hotels implement Islamic Sharia to Islamic services that they offer at their hotel. Okay, so these are my 3 open coding, my three coding for this significant statement, if you can see. So this is my Axial properties, properties, efforts in religious activities. This is the attributes actually for one selective coding, the top management. So what is the attributes of this top management? Efforts in religious activities, support from owner management, view, type of customer. So these are the properties, yeah. And we also have dimension in qualitative analysis. Dimension shows the what do we call it? Yeah, if in quantitative you have value, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to show the degree of agreement or satisfaction, for example. So qualitative, we have this dimension to show whether the efforts in religious activities is high or low. This helped me a lot in writing up the report. Okay, so and then the Axial coding is the pious managing director always initiates religious activities, and these are under the selective coding of the top management. From all these steps, yeah, I could get to this. Okay, and this is the initial categories. When you go higher, when you already reorganize, you compare, you contrast, you will get to these initial categories, and you will get to this central theme, but I will show you how. Is there any questions so far?
Any questions, anyone? Or you want to keep it until the Q&A session later? It depends. If you have any questions in between, probably just say something. Boleh kan, Dr. Zafir? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay. All right, so this is the reorganization of many themes and findings. Yeah, you need this. This come after you identify your what was it just now? Your coding, your Axial coding. Yeah, and then your initial categories. Okay, so let me share you another one. So we have in this reorganization of themes, you have initial categories, reorganized subcategories, and the broad themes. Okay, so far I have shared with you some steps. What are the steps? Can you recall? What are the steps? You may wanna you can say, or you can express it at chat so that I can read it. Oh, okay. What have you learned so far? What have I talked about so far? The coding, the Axial coding, the property dimension. Still remember? And then we get to the Axial coding, and then you get to the initial categories and subcategories and broad theme. You see, those are the steps that I took to ensure that I follow or to ensure that my research is credible and could be justified as a PhD research lah. Okay?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, Waalaikumsalam.
My question is, in the previous table, you talked about low and high something. I can't recall the table about. Is it on the axial coding?
Yes, yes, correct.
Yeah, can you just explain a bit again? Is it relating to how the respondent the recurring themes or the recurring issues is high or low? Are you talking about that?
Okay, so you want to know about the properties and dimension?
Yeah, the yellow table about the low and high. You talk about the low.
Okay.
Yeah, low.
Okay, hold on, yeah. Okay, I'll share you that one. Hold on, yeah. How to share this one? Oops. Is it this table?
Yes, the axial dimension. Yeah, the axial dimension on
Okay,
high.
this one, the high and low. Okay, the efforts. Normally when we say on efforts, right, we say high effort or low effort.
Okay.
And right now we are talking about these respondents are talking about they are talking about, he is talking about his managing director has a lot of initiative towards religious activities in the hotel itself. Okay, for example, there are many religious activities that he initiates himself. So it's easy for the hotel to implement Islamic Sharia practice. You know, so the efforts could be high or low from the top management.
Okay.
This come under the selective coding of top management. Okay, for top management, it has many Axial coding, if you can see here. Okay, the pious managing manager, director always initiate religious activities. The support from owner of the hotel on hotel marketing strategies.
Okay.
And inspiration from managing director who is knowledgeable about Sharia law and standard. So those are from the management side actually. So I put them under selective coding.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to share you another one. Okay. This is a table that I said just now. We need to reorganize the initial categories of findings that we found. Okay, we are talking just now about our internal drivers to adopt something new in the hotel, which is Islamic hotel practice. Okay, so they are the internal key drivers, yeah, in these studies are identified as the top managers and employees, and the marketing strategy itself, the organizational context, and also their strategies, yeah, to market themselves lah. Initially, there are 9 categories. As I go on and I make comparison, organization, and reorganization of my codes, I found that I can conclude that into 5 categories. So you see, from many codes, we try to see redundancy. We try to see whether there is the same concept or not. So we can reorganize it into the subcategories. Okay,
Doctor,
and that are
Doctor, sorry, can you minimize a bit the view of the words? Because currently it's 162%. If you can minimize a bit. Ah, yes. Thank you, Doctor.
you can read that. I'm so sorry. Okay, so this is the subcategory. So I have reduced this.
100 view will be okay.
Like this?
Slightly, yeah. Okay, that would be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Doctor.
All right. So key drivers. Okay. These are the key drivers of IF Islamic friendly hotel implementation. In terms of internal key drivers, I put it under organizational factors. Okay, and in this category, there are like 5 categories: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these 5 categories, I cramp it again. I try to you know, combine and contrast, and it come to 3 broad themes. And from these 3 broad themes, I see that from 9 initial categories, I can come to 3 broad themes. I think that it is saturated already. It is justified already, that I'm confident that there are only 3 themes to describe key internal drivers. Okay. All right. Is there any question? This is an important steps in justifying your categories. After coding, we have categories. And this is how you do steps in reducing your categories. Okay. Okay, I will move to the next slide.
Doctor, I have one question.
Yes.
Sorry, Doctor, can we use thematic analysis if we run experimental design?
Experimental design. You mean you're doing I'm not sure about experimental design study, but if you have interviews, you have data to transcribe, then you can use the qualitative analysis.
Because you mentioned just how high and low. You just mentioned now high and low.
Yes, high and low, yes, right?
Because in experimental, our targeting to see whether this intervention effective or not. So we in order to, instead of give questionnaire, we just can interview the participant and we will see.
I see. Okay. Do you need that? Do you need that kind of analysis?
Yeah, some of them they critic self-report. They say it's biased.
I see. Yeah. So you can also adopt this. You can also adopt this. But I tell you, for fully grounded, okay, I'm not the expert for fully grounded. I just do partially grounded. Okay. The one that I do is partially grounded. We have a guru of fully grounded here, Dr. Nur Halima. She can answer any of grounded theory questions and also further on the coding. Yeah, Dr. Halima, you're welcome to answer. But in my opinion, for experimental studies, yeah, you are doing, your main thing is experimental, right?
Yes.
So the initial part you need to interview, right? And
yes.
Some say that, and the feedback that you get is that you are doing just self-reporting without having this step implemented. Is it right?
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. So hopefully by knowing these steps, you could adopt it and justify that to be implemented in your experimental study.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any more questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I have a question. You said that some authors you have mentioned in the slides. In that
Yes.
those there is Creswell. So I have the book of Creswell.
Yes.
He
Okay.
didn't mention the thematic analysis. I have
Thematic.
the
Oh, he did not mention. Yeah.
so he have 5 approaches: narrative, research, phenomenology, grounded theory, ethnography, and case study.
Yeah.
So
That's why.
thematic analysis is inside the grounded theory or no?
No. No. Thematic analysis is by itself.
Okay.
By itself, and it is new. That's why maybe Creswell did not mention. It is new, and it is a growing methods used because it's quite flexible, especially in small research. Yeah, it's quite flexible. If you do mixed method, maybe you can adopt thematic analysis because maybe the qualitative part is quite small in your research, right? So you can do thematic analysis. But in order for you to justify that you really carry out the steps of qualitative analysis, I recommend you to use partially grounded. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you, Doctor. Please, I need a clarification.
Yes.
I just need your what type, which pattern of thematic analysis is the best? Because I learned that you mentioned different authors who have outlined different strategies for conducting this thematic analysis. So, according to your own perception, which is the best method to follow for this thematic analysis?
The best method
Yeah,
to follow, or is it you mean the best research, the best qualitative analysis to follow?
Yeah.
Okay, it depends on your research objective. It depends on your research objective. And if your research objective need you to do in-depth qualitative analysis, then you need to do maybe a grounded theory or narrative or ethnography. I don't know. You need to it depends on each theory. Research. Each research, yeah. It depends on research objective too. It depends on your population and your context too. Okay. Maybe if you can go deeper in your question, say you give me more info on your question, then I can only suggest. I cannot say the best. Okay. Any question? Any more before I continue?
Prof, my data is a document of it is a standard document. There is an organization of accounting and auditing. Its name is IOF Sharia standards. So that is my data. So what you suggest, the thematic analysis will be better for that data as it is a written document, or content analysis will be better?
Depends on the research objective. What is your research objective? If it is to justify or to maybe to define a term used by many companies, or to understand the process, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
By many companies. So you might want to have a partial grounded theory or grounded theory to identify the process. But if you want to know the most mentioned codes, the most mentioned keywords on certain certain terms used in accounting by many of your firms, you might want to use content analysis. Because in content analysis, you find word and search whether how many words used to explain something. I think so.
Okay. Okay.
So it depends. It depends on your research objective.
Okay.
Assalamu
Thank
alaikum,
you.
Doctor.
Yes, Waalaikumsalam.
Can you arrange an other workshop for thematic analysis and to apply all this information to any software, just like the NVivo is mostly used for the analysis, for data analysis. And it would be beneficial for all of us if we put all this information into the software and make scores and notes. So it would, we can easily understand about that, how to make codes and then further the notes, and then how to put all this information into the software. So it would be very easy for all of us.
Yeah, as much as I want to do that, but I think in the internet, in YouTube, there are so many ways to determine codes. I already researched on it before I do this presentation. So it could help you as well. In terms of the software, I know that NVivo you have to pay. I know that maybe UTM might have limited licensing for NVivo.
UTM provide the NVivo facility. We have all the students have the facility to download the NVivo, and the
Okay,
CICT provides us the key. Yeah, the key, and
Okay.
we can install it NVivo. Yeah, so we can
Okay.
easily install.
All right. To my understanding, even if you use NVivo, you need to identify the codes yourself. You're right?
Yeah, yeah. But
that
sometimes
is why.
it is very difficult to understand that how to, the course, then notes, then the first notes.
Yeah, automatic audio. Click it.
Yeah, you need there are many layers of codes that you need to
Yeah, yeah.
identify,
So
need to
when we
categorize,
make the
right?
analysis, final analysis, and
I
when we
see.
are going to make the graphs, it would be very difficult to, it is so confusing.
Yeah, I
For
understand.
example,
I
there is a
understand.
question, for example, the oil price can impact on the consumer spending, for example, then we have to make the course that it affects, it's not affect, how much it affects, because we need, from the graphs, we can make analysis that how much people would say that oil price would make impact on the consumer spending or not consumer spending. So that's why it's so confusing sometimes, because in the YouTube, they can tell you about this is the NVivo and you can make the course, but in detail, it's very confusing. So that's why I'm just saying, if you can,
Okay.
then it would be very
So
beneficial.
so you have problems in using NVivo or
Yeah, yeah.
deciding on your codes?
Yeah.
Which
Then
one?
one
You have
question,
problem in
how, yeah, for one course, we proper, analysis. For example, this is the one question, then how many codes we should make that this thing impact, for example, oil price impact on consumer spending, oil price not impact on the consumer spending, and how much impact. So how many codes we can make with one question? So this is my question.
I would say the codes. You might the first time you might discover so many codes that you think it is the real codes, but actually it is not. Yeah, that's why you have to repeat it again. Compare, is it the right one? Is it not? You need to have a lot of thinking in producing a code.
Yeah.
Okay, that is my view. Maybe we could invite Dr. Nurhalima to explain a little bit on how to reduce the code. Dr. Nurhalima, are you here?
Yes. I hope you can hear me out. Thank you, Zafir. I think many get confused. Okay, do you want to see my face? Okay, let us see whether you can capture my face. Okay. I think a lot of you confused when it comes to qualitative analysis because it's not a straightforward thing. So a lot of times students think that they are doing qualitative analysis, but they are not. Like the student just now, the one who talked to Dr. Zafir earlier, I did not catch up your voice or your name. You're talking about the fuel prices, and that effect significantly or not. That is a quantitative kind of way looking things, you know. So it's very difficult and very restrictive if you were to do it qualitatively. So rather than to say whether it has a high impact or a low impact, why not say, think outside the real thing, saying that what do people say when it comes to high fuel price? What is the common word among all words being shared or talked about by your respondents? Because thematic analysis is getting the themes. Getting the themes is, with all the words that have been said, what would be the common things among all those respondents? So if you just look it from a positive effect and a negative effect, and that is the only two dimension that you, or two views that you restricted your analysis, whereby if you just forget about those things, but what do people say when it comes to oil prices? What does high oil prices means to them? What does, lower high prices mean to them, and what effects is, how do they cope with it, you know? Because qualitative is not only focusing on the what, but the how and why. So if you cannot explain the how and why, so I think you have to look back on your research questions and then look back on your interview questions. I think because your interview questions may be slightly restrictive, that you have a very limited answers given by the respondents that give you some limitations in doing the qualitative analysis or thematic analysis. As for en vivo, I would recommend that if you do grounded theory, because there are multiple layers of coding, and then you have to go, you know, back and forth, intercases comparisons, then I would strongly advise you to do en vivo, because you have to learn the software first, and then hopefully to catch up the grounded theory analysis approach or techniques, and then you apply it to the system or software. Remember, this is not an SPSS kind of software where you just chuck in the number and they will come up with the answers. You, the researcher, will do the thinking for them and then associate all those your thoughts and all the codes that you think that might bring into the analysis, and then the system will try to trace up and hopefully give you some audit trail of what you have done from day one to before submitting. Okay, thank you, Zafir, and hand over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nur Halima. She is actually my guru for this, the whole thesis of mine. Yeah, she is my guru. So, okay. So that's, she's talking about grounded theory, and she's recommending the usage of grounded theory in initial part of a student's experimental study just now. Okay, is there any more question that I need to attend?
You will still have more presentation, right? I mean,
a little bit. Mana aku dah tak ingat dah mana dia punya. Sekejap. Aduh, where is it? Okay. I couldn't find it. Okay, share content. All right. Okay, so that is the table on reorganization of the main themes and findings. Yeah, bear in mind that this is under apa tu? Grounded theory. I'm using partially grounded theory, so this is not in thematic analysis. But to make it strong, in my thesis, I use this. Okay, and for you to know or to do the coding or to select the right coding, you need to do a lot of 5W and 1H, compare and contrast your ideas, okay? Conceptualizing, labeling, and key description. If you don't know whether that code is right or not, just try to describe the code again to make sure that you really understand what you're talking about and you really know what you represent in your thesis, okay? Okay, so for this, in this slide, yeah, I try to explain to you using this table, you can see where are you going to write in chapter 4 in terms of findings, and where are you going to write in chapter 5 in terms of discussion. Okay, so if you do this table under top management, there is this property. What are you going to explain in top management? Well, I want to explain about the effort. What are the effort? High, low, the effort is continuous. So you want to mention all these and you want to write it. It can be a good guideline for you. Okay. And then for chapter 5, you can easily see that there is one emerging theme that is central theme, which is champions of Islamic friendly hotel who contribute to the adoption of Islamic friendly hotel in their hotel. Okay, so this table helped me a lot in guiding me what to write. And the end, I think it's already almost 1 hour. So if you have any question, you can ask. If not, we can end the session. And I would recommend to the management or to the PGAM to conduct a clinic, or maybe we conduct a clinic to help the qualitative research student on how to write, maybe on how to do the findings and the discussion if they are stuck at some level.
When to use thematic or what, right?
Sorry? Yeah. Whether do they select the right method ke macam mana ke? Maybe we can do some clinics on it.
Yeah, we can consider that. We put that in our notes. So in future we are able to conduct that. We'll let you know. We will let you all know. All right. So now we open to Q&A session to Dr. Zafir. Interesting to know that actually sometimes we think we are doing qualitative, but it's actually.
Doctor?
Yep.
I have a question regarding to the qualitative research. Now we know qualitative is inductive research. That means from down to up. So I have seen some theses or some articles they talk about the theory in qualitative. So my question, what's the role in theory in qualitative? We can say theoretical framework or conceptual framework. What's the role of either conceptual framework or theoretical framework in qualitative research? Like in quantitative, based on the conceptual framework, we formulate our research question and hypothesis. However, in qualitative, since we are looking for to generalize the model, so why we need to include or implement or include theoretical framework or conceptual framework in our chapter 2 or chapter 1? I'm talking in proposal stage.
Yes, you were required to develop a conceptual framework, right? In your chapter 2, I think at the end of your chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
In qualitative, okay. Basically in qualitative, what I have been taught, it is the conceptual framework is only to gather or to summarize what you have learned throughout your literature review. It is not to say that you want to use one specific theory. No, it is not to say that one definite concept. No, it's just For literature review in qualitative is just an exploration of a lot of concepts available. So in your study, what do you understand and how it's going to be applied in your study, and that's it. Maybe Dr. Halima can explain more. Dr.
The
Halima?
question just now, hello, thank you.
Yeah.
The question just now is a bit confusing. At first, he talks about all this, how does or where does this theory fit into a qualitative research? But then he also mentioned that the purpose of doing qualitative is to make a general statement of a theory. Actually, both are wrong in a way that, you know, we in quantitative, we are testing a theory. That's why finding the right theory, the 100% theory, will be the main concern. So you have to identify the right variables so that you can test that particular theory. Unlike quantitative, we are building up theory. We are not testing a theory. So building up a theory, not build a big theory, but small substantive theory. It means the one that can help to explain the existing theory. Because we couldn't find 100% fit or 100% match of a theory that can explain the phenomena that we want to investigate. That's why we cannot test. When we cannot test, the theoretical framework in chapter 2, I mean at the end of your literature review, serves as to present the closest theories, it could be one or two, that you find might closely capture or closely guarded the area of your interest. Without having a theory, your research is not a philosophical higher degree research, meaning that is the minimum requirement, even though that we say we cannot find 100% fit, but we can find the loose fit theories, maybe coming from the social learning theory, but into slightly focus on social learning theory, legitimate peripheral participation, for example. Under social learning theory also, you can also explain into the shown, what do you call it, learning from practice, or further up some other small theories. So meaning that the theory is not meant to be tested, the theory is about to say that we have some sort of ideas of our issues and our topic situates into this particular theory, but that particular theory cannot fit 100% to the phenomena that we want to investigate. Thus, we have to do it qualitatively. So if we do not mention any theory at all, so we are saying that you can just do research under a tree. Okay, anyone can do research like consultancy research. It doesn't serve any theory. It doesn't require any theory. It can be done quantitatively and qualitatively. But when it comes to academic, when it comes to PhD, philosophical higher degree, so the theory fits to guide you or to give some border to your exploration of your research work. Over to you, Dr. Zafir.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Noor Halima.
Thank you, Dr. Noor Halima. Okay, is there any, yeah, I'm going to give you the slide to your leader. Yeah.
Earlier, you have said that many research mention very little how they conduct the qualitative analysis in their writing, given that the limitation of space to write. So, would you recommend? How do you do this kind of practice in your writing, especially on journal or something? How do you simplify you punya
my steps?
Yes, you punya steps tu. Is it into like the table that you have done just now? So you just show one portion of it, or how? What would be the practice?
So, okay. Normally when I submit a paper, I will explain to them that I use a partial grounded theory, and when they and I explain to them the development of coding, macam mana coding tu dikeluarkan, plus identification of property, and also all the steps lah. Maknanya the journal tu maybe they want to know about about how you do, how you carry out, what are the steps. If you can mention your steps in doing your qualitative research, I think that's enough already. Many papers that I read, they just mentioned that we adopted thematic analysis and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 followed round and clock. That's it. You know, but probably they want to know more. What do you do in the first step? What do you do in the second step? What do you find in the first step? And how does it lead to the second step? What do you reduce and how do you combine your code or your teams? So that's it. I think that's the better way to reflect on what we do lah.
All right, thank you.
In the journal. All right.
Assalamu
Thank
alaikum.
you.
Prof, I have a question.
Yes.
This is my first semester and I am making my proposal. I want to ask that when you were in the proposal stage, so at that point your methodology was detailed or it was only not detailed? Because now you have done the work and you have mentioned your methodology with detail. But at the proposal level, is it necessary that a student have to make the detailed methodology or not detailed methodology will be enough?
I think the examiner will understand if you say you want to use quantitative or qualitative. A detailed research method doesn't mean that research method that you're going to implement in your research, because that might be something might happen along the way. So as long as you can prepare chapter 3 and you can convince the examiner, I think that will be enough. For qualitative, I think you might want to say what is your plan in conducting the interview. Where do you want to go? To who are you going to interview? Those are very common. In terms of analysis, I think it's worth to mention what analysis that you want to do. If you already prepared to do the analysis and you already know the steps in the analysis, so you just mention the steps in the analysis, even though you haven't done it yet. In my case, my proposal were presented twice. The first one was rejected and the second one luckily accepted. Okay, so in my proposal, because it took a long time for me to defend my proposal the second time, so I have done my initial interview with the expert, which is one of the data source of my research. So so I report that in chapter 3 as well. That can convince the examiner that you can do your research lah. Okay. Anyway, research method for qualitative, when we do qualitative analysis, it is iterative. So it will go back and forth until you're confirmed on one theme. So you can't say that you can say that you want to do these steps, but you can't identify yet what are the coding, what are the codes that you already identify. You can't do that until you carry out your steps in qualitative analysis lah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, Doctor, I have a question. 2 questions.
Yes.
Question number 1 is, you mentioned that thematic analysis alone will not suffice for like a PhD, that you have to do more, maybe partial ground, you add with partial ground. So what makes the thematic analysis associated with partial grounded theory? Is it organizing broad? How does it make it to be associated with partial grounded theory?
how do I associate thematic analysis with partially grounded theory?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so since I don't do grounded theory,
Okay.
I take some of the analysis in grounded theory, like the axial coding, the development of dimension and property,
Okay.
to analyze my theme.
Okay.
Otherwise, in thematic analysis, you just identify the theme. When you read and read and read, you just take it out and identify. In grounded theory, partially grounded theory that I adopted, I make it such a way that I do coding and I do axial coding, properties and dimensions, selective coding, and then only I go to the themes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so that could give me more in-depth in understanding the theme that finally arrive after I've done some codes, some coding activities.
Okay. Meaning from maybe 10 codings and now you justify 3 out of from the 10. That is more grounded and more valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but for grounded theory, you need to listen to Dr. Nur Halima because she is the one who was doing grounded theory and she's the expert.
Okay.
Maybe
So
Dr.
my
Iman
second
want to add on? Dr. Nur
my
Halima,
second
do you want to add on?
okay.
The question.
Dia tanya Kak Ima, the grounded theory tu, saya kan buat thematic plus grounded.
Yes.
He wanna know about, I think he wanna know about grounded theory. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. Grounded theory, you do not have any, what do you call it, preconceptions or pre-ideas about that particular issues. Even though that you have read about and many of the research written or many of the journals that have talked about that particular topic, but when you come out to ask questions, you have to put aside all your pre-readings, all the pre-thinkings about that topic and come over to investigate with an open mind, meaning that you cannot be biased to follow the findings or to follow the questions a la so and so from any other journals. If you do it purely, okay, pure grounded theory. So that is slightly difficult because most of the questions are loosely done or designed, most open-ended questions. So you are expecting any kind of answers while interpreting it later on using grounded theory analysis. You have to find out from your data, and the data will ground it, and that data will stick the findings by its own. So meaning that you cannot compare your findings with others. The data has been grounded and the findings that you come is grounded within the data. So should other people comes in, they will have a different vision, of course. So it's very difficult to understand grounded theory in one day. You have to read the book and then we can start discussing. So go out and look into Strauss and Corbin. Okay.
Okay, okay, understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Dr. Nur Halima, I just want to know, you just say, I just asked you about the conceptual framework and theoretical framework in qualitative study. So as you mentioned now, we need to have like theory that close to fit to the phenomena or to our content in order to say we need to develop or to build a little bit stage in qualitative study. So do we call this theory that we say we need to close to fit is theoretical framework, or what we name it, or under which title we can put it? The theory that close to, not exactly fit with our content. And this is my first question. Second question, if we have theory close in, do you think this will not affect it to our analysis later on when we do thematic analysis? Maybe in direct way, we're leading our thematic analysis to be fit or to be in line with the previous theory. So I need to, I'm just confused about two things. If possible to clarify this point.
Okay. The first question is whether we want to use the word theoretical or conceptual framework, is it?
Yes, true.
Okay. I'm not sure about UTM, okay? The UK, they are slightly loose about it in the university that I studied during my PhD. So I think theoretical framework is okay. Some of my quantitative friends also use theoretical framework for their work. It's just a different school of thoughts. But I'm quite okay with just using theoretical or conceptual, but I think theoretical fits better because we are actually talking about the theory that really, I think like 80% fit for our studies. Coming to your second questions, when we analyze whatever analysis that you choose, be it thematic analysis, be it grounded theory analysis, be it narrative analysis, we are not testing the theories. Again, we qualitative researcher are not testing the theories. So proving the theories right is not our main concern. We just want to present the data and make some sense whether these particular issues make any association. It means would there be any connection to the existing theories that we have talked earlier in the earlier chapters? If it's not, then we can say, well, this is the new contribution to knowledge that we have found, but this particular area is not really discussed within the literature of our topic. Okay, but basically, if we have found the, what do you call it, the 80% fit of theory, the way that we ask questions, even though it is not in a way of testing, but the discussion, if you ask the right questions, will reveal a bit of, what do you call it, connection to the theories that you have said earlier. Okay, so it may be explained in different terms. That's why asking definitions in qualitative is very, very necessary. So it could be explained in a very business terminologies or in practice terminologies compared to the one mentioned in the literature which are academically introduced. So again, as I said, we are not testing the theory. So we are quite open if whatever that we found are totally new from the one written in the literature. Okay.
Okay, doctor, but how can we justify this theory fit will not affect it to our background when we do analysis, thematic analysis? How can we justify?
Then your question.
Sorry, when we have theoretical fit, as you mentioned now, when we do thematic analysis, how can we justify this theoretical fit will not influence to our background and our cognitive analysis when we do analysis later on will not influence to us to make theme or to make themes that inline direct or indirect to the theoretical fit. Yes, we will not test the theory, but we will generalize the themes. Maybe we will get biased because we have preconception about this theory, about the theoretical fit.
I try to answer your questions even though I don't really understand it well. Okay, you know, if you do qualitative research, you are not going to be asking all the attributes of that particular theory during your interviews. Okay, if you do that, you are actually doing quantitative research approach, but in qualitative manner, that is interviewing people. So you are checking up whether, oh, this exists or not. So the answer is yes. How does it exist? Blah, 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 blah. So definitely the analysis will be like trying to prove or trying to test that particular theory. That theory just fit into, okay, when they talk about, okay, I give you an example. I'm looking into social learning theory, how people really socialize and learning from each other. So under social learning theory, one keyword is that learning takes place at the workplace. So I cannot look at learning that is done formally. It means in the classroom. I cannot look into learning in the higher institution. But I'm not going to ask them to say, oh, how do you really learn at work? I just want to know how you get to know things, okay? I don't ask them on, okay, tell me or share with me, how do you learn, where do you learn, do you have any training? Because I'm not interested in that, okay? I'm interested into learning at the workplace, learning from each other, learning from the experienced people. So I know all these attributes are from the social learning theory. So I'm not saying that I'm leaving the theory or I'm avoiding the theory. I'm just saying that when I ask questions, I'm not going to, biasly test that particular theory. I will just ask them, okay, tell me, how do you learn at this company? Who do you refer to? How do you know that you make mistakes? How can you get better off? So all those big questions are the questions that you should ask as a qualitative researcher, okay?
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Doctor, I have another question. Yes, my question is this, that you have mentioned in the presentation triangulation. So I want to ask that can it be allowed that the literature review becomes the part of triangulation? Is it allowed in research or qualitative research or not?
Can you repeat your question again? I'm sorry. The triangulation, okay?
Yes, in triangulation, if the area is a new area and research is very less in that area, so is it allowed that the literature review can become the part of the triangulation or not?
Okay, in terms of literature review to be part of the triangulation, yeah?
Yes, yes.
I think it again depends on your research design. How are you going? But to me, to be safe, you need to get new info to triangulate with your main sources lah. To me, but you're saying that it's still new. If it is still new, the literature review has limited data on it, isn't it? So I don't think it is a good source for you to triangulate with your study. Anyway, in the discussion, you are going to triangulate as well. You're going to compare and contrast what you have with what the literature say. So it's going to be redundant and not convincing to me.
Doctor, can I chip in?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, to answer the participant's question, whether literature review can be part of the triangulation process, technically we can't. The reason being is triangulation is to have a more than one sources of data that we collect. So in this case, literature review, we are not collecting the data. It is for more like to have an understanding. So like what you said to him, what you suggested to him, we can use literature review for the explanation, interpretation towards the later chapters. We can't consider literature review as a triangulation sources.
Correct. Yeah, but the data that is available and not taken as a literature review, he can use that. For example, available data of company reports, for example. Yeah, he can use that.
Or maybe he can use secondary data. For example, Dr. Zafir.
Yes.
Yeah, can like secondary data like annual report statistics or any excerpts from the report, and you have another data, let's say an interview. So you triangulate that too. Raw interview data. Okay. Triangulation is basically, from my understanding, is when you have several sources of information or data, then you will start comparing each other and see what is the common point, of the data that you have. literature review is mainly considered as secondary data. But if you want to triangulate, you triangulate it with something else. For example, if you have any if you do any computation on statistics, then you will see whether the information that you get will coincide with the new information that you get. You know, several sources of data that you triangulate together. That's my understanding on triangulation. I'm a mixed method person. I'm not a qualitative person. So this is from my point of view lah. I don't know.
Okay.
I hope I answer.
That is somewhere doable for mixed method in terms of quant and qual. Okay, if you talk about qual alone, if you have like a different way of getting your data, let's say interview, observation, and then observation, there are two kinds: the non-observation, the observation itself, the participative observation. So you have also sometimes, you know, companies report, okay, to support your findings. So if you read through the company's report and you get all those findings and you triangulate them with your main majority or your major work that is interviews, then hopefully that provides internal reliability of validity of your findings. So that's the purpose of doing triangulation. So do not get confused doing the thinking of your literature review to triangulate it with your data, because as Dr. Devi said, it is a secondary produced by somebody else, but whatever that you rely on documentation, that can also be a source of your data. The analysis coming from that within the document could provide room for you to do triangulation.
Okay, we have several questions actually in the chat. Maybe Kak Ima, can you give your opinion on this? It's from Jeff Ali. He said that he want to ask whether he want us to share how to show our research framework in qualitative study. And he is associating cognitive appraisal theory. And how can I sketch a framework?
Okay, we do not
research framework.
Any what do you call it? One size fits all thing. Okay, different qualitative researcher will come up with a different way of producing their initial theoretical framework model. Okay, we also call it as our researchers interpretative of that theory. Okay, so the way that we do it as loosely as it is, it could be like a simple diagram. That diagram can be 2-dimension or 3-dimension. 2-dimension would be nice, you know. 1 dimension doesn't look that nice. It's just a simple sketch of things that can sum up the overall thinking. And we do not have all these variables. So don't you ever put variables number 1, variables number 3. It's just a simplified picture or diagram that you creatively produced, and later on when you have analyzed, you go back to your initial diagram or theoretical diagram, and then you think out aloud and keep on thinking, okay, this is how I perceive the model looks like before I collect my data, and now my finding is here. Now you have your key themes, and then you have to adjust the diagram. Okay, as simple as that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nur Halima. And Dr. Dewi, do we have more questions, or we could?
Hello. Yes, please, Doctor. One last question.
Hello.
Hello. Assalamualaikum. Yes, Doctor, I have just a little bit question. It's about the thematic framework of the study. I already collected my data from thinking aloud protocols and retrospective interviews. So I already generated a unified thematic framework table, which contains the main themes, sub-themes, categories, and codes. So I used the thematic framework for both source of data. the thinking aloud and the retrospective interviews. Because in my field of study, the retrospective interview means that you have some missing informations for in thinking aloud, and the retrospective interviews will assist the researcher to ask the interviewee about those missing fragments. So I generate the unified thematic framework to explain like the challenges and developments in the practice of the interviewees. So did you agree that I can use one thematic framework for the negative side and the positive? Because it's contained the main themes which reflect both images.
I could not get that question. I could not imagine that question. Okay, can you be a little bit simple in explaining your question? There are too many information in your question.
Okay, okay. I have two research methods, which is the qualitative, okay, thinking aloud, and retrospective interviews. Okay, in order to build the thematic framework.
Sorry. You have two what research
methods.
Okay, what is
The thinking aloud protocols.
Thinking aloud protocol.
Interviews.
And the interview. Oh, okay.
Okay, so I generate a unified thematic framework which contains the main themes, sub-themes, categories, and codes. Okay, I use this thematic framework, which I table, to show the negative side in the relationship between like A and B, and also the thematic framework has been used to show the positive side between A and B. So is it possible to do this, or I have to generate a thematic framework for each method?
Okay, it depends again.
I think I can get what he meant. You know,
okay.
He ended up we have findings that what we call it that show the positive effect, and then also findings that talk about the negative effect. Okay, so. And he has follows the protocol or the process of thematic analysis. My question is that I want to know, how do you ask the question? And if the question is slightly biased towards explaining the effect rather than to look the overall scenario. Do you get what I mean? Definitely, if you have a very biased questions towards one particular issue, in your case, you are looking into the relationship. That's why I think that, you know, we qualitative don't really talk about relationship whatsoever, because that is already biased to looking into the relationship, and what much can you say about relationship. But again, when you do that particular analysis, you already think like a quantitative person, that a relationship in quantitative research can be subscribed into two particular area, that is positive or negative. So look again on your questions, and look again of the answers given. You may be too focused on getting the positive or dividing the thinking into positive and negative, thus you regard or you put away or you don't really care about other words used by respondents to describe that particular scenario that could give you another code, another themes later on. Okay? Revisit them.
Sure, Doctor, sure. What you mentioned is correct.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Hello, doctor.
Zafir?
Please, I just want to seek your assistance. Can we have this kind of presentation perhaps every 2 weeks, especially in an interactive session like Dr. Alima, Dr. Zafir, Salleh? So all of you will be in attendance to share ideas. The sharing of ideas make this presentation very, very important and useful. Otherwise, we wouldn't have enjoyed it more to this level. The three of you are able to interact with your experience, so it makes it more better. Please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, that's a blessing in disguise due to this COVID-19, because starting since MCO, our faculty came up with the idea to have this research webinar. So this is the third series. Every month we're gonna have two webinar on research. Okay. So this is the first one for this June. There will be another one somewhere towards the towards the end of the June. End of June, we will announce. You know, we will what do you call that?
Now, we will announce a new program, and you will share the slide. I mean, you will share the date with us.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
After this one, then come a new one later.
Okay.
So every
Thank
month
you
we
very
have
much.
two webinars until December.
Oh, that's great. That's
And
great.
then, inshallah, with God's blessing, we hope to be able to continue this next year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This is very beautiful and useful. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. I have one last question to Doctor. You mentioned the thematic analysis can be useful for further mixed method. How?
Can you ask again? I'm sorry.
You mentioned that thematic analysis can be used for further mixed method in research for more validation or triangulation. How can thematic analysis can be used for further mixed method in research?
Okay, normally in mixed method, it depends on your research framework, yeah? Whether you want to have it too qualitative or too quantitative, or you want to have an average of qualitative and quantitative. It depends on your research question as well, whether it is useful to have very in-depth qualitative or a little, you know, qualitative analysis. So if you think that you just want to get to know the concepts, or you want to get to know some themes that might arrive on certain contexts or in certain subjects, you might want to adopt thematic analysis. But if you want to know, to really know the process, what the respondent really mean by something, and you want to go in depth with it, you have to know to use grounded theory or qualitative analysis.
Okay.
Okay, so it depends how much you want to spend your time, how much you want to really dig on the data. If you have the data, I think it's a waste. It's a waste if you don't do it. What is it?
The quali is in depth, so I started with interviews. I want to further now do the quanti.
I see. So what is your objective in your quali? So you need to know what is your objective. Is it enough to do thematic analysis only, or to you is it satisfied already? Because actually a researcher is a tool to collect data in qualitative. So you determine whether it is enough or not. Anyway, it's your research.
Okay. Okay.
May I add on? Okay. When you do research, what you need to do is you really go deep into looking into research methodology, because you need to identify where do you stand. whether you are a quantitative researcher or mixed method. Mixed method also there's a weightage to the quantitative or qualitative part. Okay,
Yeah.
or are you a fully qualitative researcher? So you need to in my case, for my students, I always tell them whenever you read article, you read journals, or throughout your PhD journey, you must read a lot on research methodology, because then you will know, are we doing the right thing? Whether my data will be sufficient to answer my objective, or will the respondent that I have selected will be the right one to answer the questions? So a lot of things. So going through research methods, books, or journal articles from the best gurus in research methodology like Sekaran, like Miriam, qualitative like Miriam, Mars, and Huber. Quantitative also have their own gurus. So from there, then you can be confident. Okay, this is why such methods or this research design has been selected in your study. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes I see some, we did some mistake. Everyone does mistake during the journey of PhD, because everyone is learning. Day to day we learn new things. Okay. So along the way, then I realized, as per my experience, I realized that we really need to understand the context of the research, okay, the objective, and then what is the expectation of the output. Okay, like qualitative, you don't know what's the expectation. You know there's an issue, okay, and you explore. But in quantitative, usually you know there's an issue, you found a gap, and what could be the expected output when you analyze your results. Okay, so for everyone, whether you are quantitative, qualitative, or a mixed method person, so go and read research methodology book.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Anyone who comes to my room, you will see a stack of research method books in my room. If my students are here, then they know. I tell them, go and read research method books. Okay, a lot of gurus. Then you know where you stand, right?
There is no there is no shortcut way of doing research.
Agree.
Thank you, Doctor.
Because sometimes if we rely on articles so much, we may misunderstood what what does the article trying to tell us, the results that has been displayed in the article, because we ourselves don't understand research method. Okay, when they say they are doing thematic analysis, we understand on the surface, but we don't know what is it thematic analysis, how they do it, why is it has to be done that way, and so on. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right, welcome.
Yeah.
Any more questions to Dr. Zafir or Dr. Halimah? Okay. All right. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, your participation. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Zafir, Dr. Halimah, for being here. A great session, and I hope this has,
Thank you. Thank you.
consider
Thank you,
what to
Doctor.
do analysis research. Okay, Dr. Zafir, any words?
Thank you.
Or participants here?
Thank you for inviting to all of you who's doing qualitative. Don't give up. Find the codes and make sure you reorganize the teams, understand about your teams very well. Don't be afraid to list your teams, because you are the researcher. You are the one who know a lot on your research. Don't say that you don't know, Maybe you are wrong at one step, but you are the one who own your research, and you are the instrument for your research method, for your data. So you have a lot in your hand, and you must be confident on what you are doing. Okay.
Alright.
Thank
Okay, Dr.
you.
Zafir.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Halimah, any words to share?
I welcome. You know, I'm quite surprised with the number of interest, you know, in qualitative these coming semesters lately. You know, my structured course quite a high among students. So I welcome qualitative researcher. I'm very delightful to hear all the questions, and I'm here to help you guys. But again, you know, should there be any agenda, should there be any avenue, I'm ever willing to share this particular very little knowledge of mine to everyone. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard, qualitative researcher. Good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Ima. I think yeah, we'll consider having probably workshops with these two qualitative researchers, Dr. Ima, Dr. Zafir, and we have some other qualitative researchers also at the faculty. Yeah, that will be in our consideration to have another workshop, different one, hand to hand, hands on probably. All right. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you, everyone.